Hey everyone! In this video I want to show you how you can draw two eyes. From beginners I often hear, okay, I can draw one eye, but I mess up drawing the second eye. Let me show you how I draw two the same eyes. It all starts with the sketch, and what you can do to make it easier for yourself is drawing some guidelines. If you follow those guidelines, you almost can't mess up. I usually use a drawing app called Procreate to draw over the reference photo, but you can also print out your reference photo and draw the guidelines with a light pencil. Also, one thing to remember is that you want to be sure that both eyes have the same width, and usually the space in between the eyes will also have that same width. So you will have 3 equal spaces. If you draw those guidelines, you will be sure that the eyes in your drawing aren't too close to each other or too far apart. When I draw guidelines, I usually draw them on the sides of each eye and a line in the middle of the eye. Of course, if you draw a portrait from a different angle, you will have different guidelines and different proportions. That's why it's easier to use guidelines to help you to get the correct proportions. If you want to learn how to draw, joining my membership can help you. All of my lessons are in real time with commentary. If you're a beginner, you can go through stage 1, but if you have already been drawing for a while and already understand the basics, you can start drawing with us in stage 2. Now, once you have your guidelines, you can start drawing them on your paper. If you want the eyes to be the exact same size as your reference photo, you can use your pencil or ruler to measure and draw the guidelines the same size. Don't forget to draw the guidelines as light as possible because you want to be able to erase them later on. Now, with your guidelines in place, you can start with the sketch. Take your time with this and keep looking back at your reference photo. Eyes usually aren't perfectly symmetrical, so pay attention if, for example, on one side the crease or the eyebrow is a bit higher or lower than on the other eye. I always use an HB pencil for this sketch, but you can even use a lighter pencil like the 2H because you want your sketch and guidelines to be very light. When you're finished with the sketch, you can erase the guidelines. Now, before you start the shading, you want your sketch to be correct, so step back from your drawing for a while so that you can come back with fresh eyes and have another look at your drawing or reference photo. Look closely and compare to see if everything is correct. I'm not saying you want the eyes to be exactly the same as if you're a copy machine, but you want the eyes to look good. If one of the irises isn't round or if the pupils aren't in the middle of the iris, the eyes might look cross-eyed. Remember that the iris is a circle. The top part is covered by the upper eyelid. So double check and see if everything is correct before you move on. It's easier to correct at this stage than when you're almost finished with the shading. Also, if your drawing doesn't have the correct proportions and your shading is really good, your drawing still wouldn't look realistic because the sketch is more important than the shading. Okay, so once you're satisfied with the sketch, you will move on to the shading. I usually use 3 or 4 different pencil grades and a black colored pencil for the darkest parts. A full list of materials I use is listed under the video. I start the first layer with the lightest pencil grade, usually the HB, 2B or even 4B. Depending on how light the lightest values are in the reference photo, and I always use light pressure while holding my pencil more to the back. That way you can shade with the side of the pencil lead and get a smoother result. After every layer I smudge with a blending stump or soft tissue to smoothen even more. For the next layer, I move on to the next pencil grade and smudge again. That's how I build up the layers gradually, and I smudge after every layer to be sure I have smooth transitions. Because you don't want any lines in your drawing. Our face doesn't have any lines but edges, so make sure you're not drawing lines. That will make your drawing look flat. Now, after building up the layers, I step away from my drawing for a while to come back with fresh eyes. And then I check the values to see if I need to darken or lighten somewhere. It's important to take a break because if you're focusing on your drawing for too long, you won't be able to see any mistakes you might need to correct. So once I'm satisfied with the values, I move on to the final details. And add the highlights with a white acrylic marker. Adding highlights can really make a difference. Once the paint is dry, I gently shade over some parts to make sure it's not too bright. Because even highlights have different values, they are not all just white. Now I want to remind you about something, because seeing others draw might give you the feeling that you will never improve or get to the level that others are. But if you really want to start drawing or start improving, remember that it will take time and dedication. It's also important that you understand what you're drawing. If you have the right knowledge, you're almost halfway there. The rest comes with practice. Even 10 minutes a day to spend time on your drawing will be enough. I'm pretty sure you will be thankful for that well-spent time afterwards. Because it's time to prioritize yourself and finally take the time to learn something you always wanted. So let me help you move forward. Let's do it together. The doors to join are opening soon again, so join us in the membership and let's get started.